This story about Starbucks. So, for one, I am immensely proud of all the Starbucks employees that are unionizing across this country. We also have some local stores that are unionizing here, right in Massachusetts. But first and foremost, I want to talk about Howard Schultz and what he's been trying to do. So, let me go ahead and pull this up here. How scared is Howard Schultz of the Starbucks union wave? I don't know. Let's see. Let's get into it. So there's Howard Schultz there. So here we go. This week, the Starbucks union wave continued its sweep across the country with a victory at 3 newly unionized stores in Ithaca, New York. Now, 16 Starbucks locations across the country have voted to unionize, and more than 150 more will soon hold votes on whether to unionize. The chain's new old CEO, Howard Schultz, is clearly feeling stressed by these developments, culminating in multiple tense exchanges with workers at a meeting between Schultz and Starbucks employees in Long Beach, California. Schultz did not mince words while speaking with workers who confronted the CEO over the company's aggressively anti-union approach, which has allegedly included retaliating against baristas who publicly support the union by firing them or decreasing their hours. This is actually happening, folks. If you hate Starbucks so much, why don't you go somewhere else? Schultz reportedly said to a barista and a union organizer at Madison Hall. Now, I want to chime in here and add a little bit of information about Howard Schultz. For those of you who are not aware, Howard Schultz was formerly the CEO of Starbucks. He stepped back from that position and then came back as CEO in the interim to try to stop the unions from growing across the country. That is why he is back. Howard Schultz actually had announced that he was going to run for president for 2020 on The View, MSNBC, and other news outlets as well. He received a lot of criticism because he wanted to run as an independent. And he said the reason why he wanted to run as an independent is because he said both parties are corrupt and are not helping the American people. Now, that's really interesting that he said that, because here he is trying to stop working class people from forming a union. Well, it turns out that Howard Schultz was always anti-union. And this is another example of someone telling you one thing when they're running for office, but then you get to see who they really are. So he's against unions. So he wasn't really going to try to create any type of change either. I just wanted to point that out. Let's go back into the article. Schultz has been vocally anti-union for decades. That's nothing new. But what is novel is his level of public frustration in these conversations regarding unionization at Starbucks. To any observer with their eye on Starbucks engagement with workers, it would appear Schultz is growing increasingly concerned about just how successful the union drive at Starbucks will ultimately be. And there are certainly reasons for a powerful CEO to be scared by the might of worker power. Until the first Starbucks voted to unionize, Starbucks leadership had unilateral power over its workforce, for better and for worse. But when a majority of the brand's more than 8,000 company-operated stores in the U.S. are operated by unionized workers who will have a say in their pay and working conditions, Starbucks will have to share a bigger chunk of its billions of dollars in quarterly revenue with the people who actually make and serve the coffee. That's pretty interesting. Let's go down to here. But Schultz would do well to realize that his strategy of talking terse with workers may ultimately backfire. It's unlikely that baristas will see any level of reliability in Schultz, who has an estimated net worth of nearly $4 billion and once used his spare cash to mount a run for president of the United States. See, told you. Plus, Starbucks workforce is young, and these Gen Z baristas don't seem to scare easily. They're picketing outside of Starbucks locations, spreading the word on TikTok, and plainly stating their demands for better wages. At this point in the Great Resignation, workers are in a unique position to demand more. And that's not exactly good news for Starbucks' hardline stance against worker organizing. So, of course, of course, it's always one of the people at the top. It's always got to be the CEO or the former CEO to come in and try to stop people from forming a union. It is ridiculous. As you know, he's worth $4 billion. As I just said in that article, it's a hot mess. And I don't think it's working. I don't think bringing Howard Schultz back is preventing these workers from forming a union. They're just continuing to grow. And I love seeing it every day. Every day I wake up, there's another store and another store. This is what we need, people. We need the workers to rise up in this country. If they can create unions at Amazon and Starbucks, just imagine where else you can create unions. This is going to inspire more workers to rise up against their employer and form a union. And this is what we need in this country. I'm going to go to some of the comments in the chat, and then I'm going to show you a little bit of local news about Starbucks union here. MJ said Amazon in New York and Starbucks have proved that it's possible to unionize. That's right. McGruff says, how dare workers have rights? Reminds me of what they said about slaves. Oh, we really are still we're like indentured servants in this country a lot of times. LPA Film says, take note, y'all, this will be part of the way we will need to form third parties. Starbucks, social media, Chris Smalls, their strategies will be key. That is a good point to note, LPA Film. That's a good point. Bryce says, I'm glad to see this happening. Me too. We need some good news, right? With everything that's going on, we need to hear some good news. So this makes me really happy. I'm so proud of the younger people, the Gen Z. They're not putting up with that crap. And this is what I was telling you guys. Like, my students were Gen Z. They do not tolerate the mess. Let me tell you, they are not about that life. Now, locally, Starbucks here, the workers here are also having success. So let's see this. 2 Starbucks stores in the Boston area unanimously secure union wins, the first in Massachusetts. Rise up, Beantown, rise up. Rise up, Beantown, rise up. Here we go. 2 Starbucks stores in the Boston area won union elections Monday, becoming the first unionized locations in the state. Joined by union, oh, excuse me, I skipped a spot. Oh, make this bigger. There we go. Joined by union organizers and supporters from around the state, baristas from Starbucks locations in Coolidge Corner and Alston erupted in cheers and embraced one another as election results were announced by an official from the National Labor Relations Board. 14-0 in Brookline and 16-0 in Alston. For those who don't know, I'll show you what that looks like in just a second. The next step for the new union affiliated with Worker United is negotiating contracts with Starbucks management. The baristas are seeking higher wages, more say in everyday operations, and higher staffing levels. The victory is all of ours collectively, not just our stores, but our community and every worker here and around the world. That's coming from Tyler, who's a barista at the Brookline location. This makes me so happy, you guys. Over the last 6 months, more than 200 Starbucks locations have moved to form unions across the country, including 15 in Massachusetts, out of roughly 9,000 company-owned stores nationwide. Monday's election marks the 18th and 19th union victories in the country, including one contested election in Kansas. All right. Let me show you something here. I do want to show you the areas that they are referring to. Some of you, if you haven't been to the area, you're probably like, what is a Brookline and an Alston? So I do want to show you what those places look like. I like talking about local news. I like showing you guys, what happens here. I should do that more often, especially for people that if you've never been here. Boom, drop the map. All right, here we go. So I want to show you the areas that they're talking about. So this is Greater Boston. And some would say it extends further than this. So Boston is in the red. Brookline is over to the left of Boston, right here in the blue. Some people argue Brookline should just be a part of Boston because it looks like someone took a bite out of Boston right here. And Alston is actually right up here in this little cut in between Cambridge and Brookline. That's actually where Boston University is. That's also right next to Boston College. So that is a heavy college area there. And of course, a lot of the people working at those Starbucks locations are college students. So that is the area that they are referring to. I'm excited. Can you guys tell I'm pumped? Can you tell? That's right. That's right. Sherry says we must stick together. Yes, we must. We must, Sherry. I agree. Really, really good news.